I'm an earthworm woman. In the mornings, I fill my tanks by breathing the energy of the sea and tasting the power of the sun penetrating my skin. There's an air of no care, which comes with age, and I hold my head up proudly, liking who I've become. I'm not afraid of smells, or dirt, or to walk barefoot across the stones. Sometimes I wade through the shallow water just to embrace its fluid element, my hair often crazy and loose, being pulled by and flying in the wind. I can be glamorous if I want to, although makeup was never my thing. And I've learnt that life is for living, not fearing, and so I absorb it like a sponge. That's lucky because I made a bad joke. Good morning, everyone, and grand rising and everything else. I feel fine now, but just before I started, I felt very foggy, and I'm not sure why. I'm very tired, but today, this is another Go with the Flow Monday, and I'm going to be talking. I'm bringing on in a minute Qi. Some of you may not have known her from way back, like 20, whenever it was, when we used to go and do this weird thing called protesting and standing up. But she's obviously done lots more since then. And yeah, I guess we're just going to talk about a subject that constantly seems to be one that comes up for me, for many people, just about living in our truth, being very authentic, and feeling like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing anyway, on the right path. So I'm going to bring her on because otherwise I just start blabbering away about nothing. So hi, Qi. Now,
Good morning.
Anybody there? So I met you way back in 21? I wonder.
Yeah, I think it might 2021. I think it must have been.
Yeah, and we just obviously what happened and what has continually been happening, you kind of just met people who were on the same page, and I don't really know how we met you.
We spoke on the phone first. You cold called me to see if I wanted to be on Cafe Lockdown, and we felt like kindred spirits. So it felt like so much in common. We talked very effortlessly for quite a few hours on the phone over a number of occasions, I think.
Yeah, which has happened, isn't it? I mean, I love that. I love that. And then you end up walking our dogs when we were locking ourselves in our house, thinking that we shouldn't be leaving them. Insane. One day you did that anyway. But so, and I always remember you talked about your shop and your Chrystal Shop, which I've only just been to like last week. Tell me about how did that all start? I'm just going to go and see.
I've had my Chrystal Shop in Caulfield for 28 years. I started it when I was 22. But the business is actually celebrating 46 years in business this year. So my parents started making semi-precious stone jewellery and selling it at the Esplanade Market in 1980. And then I left school at 15 and joined the business. I learned how to make jewellery. I bought the business off them, which was just a market stall. I bought it off them between the ages of 18 and 21. I'd go and pay my parents every week after market. And then my husband and I, Derek, we've been together for 33 years this year. He and I took our market stall into a shop in Caulfield, and we had no money, so we literally set up calico-covered trestle tables in a shop. I was 22 years of age, and he's sort of 4.5 years older than me or something like that. So, and then we've just been putting everything back into it ever since. We've had a healing centre for over 25 years. Before COVID, that was a much bigger part of the business. We had, I think, for about 20 years, we hovered at around between 25 and 30 practitioners. We had 7 treatment rooms, and we shut all of that down because of COVID. But and the shop was shut.
Did you say 20 rooms?
We had 7 treatment rooms, and for about 20 years, we hovered at between 25 and 30 practitioners at any given time.
Someone just comment, because I just want to check the comments are working, because there's nothing coming up. Sorry, with the people who are watching. Yeah, wow, that's and then you've got that whole outside bit, which is gorgeous.
Yeah, we've got quite a large crystal garden out the back of the store, and I don't think that's ever been so loved as it has been since COVID. And people definitely seem to be enjoying the outdoor space a lot more than ever. And we've been running free community events for over 12 months now in the garden, every Saturday. And that's been giving me a new passion for what I've been doing after having done it for so long. But basically, we've been offering our space and our promotion for free for anyone who wants to offer the community something of value for free. So
that's such a giving. I mean, there's not many businesses that do things like that. So they're all commenting now. Hi. And there's not many businesses that actually do something for free like that, which is very commendable.
Well, it's been a real win-win. I think a couple of years ago, after everything opened back up and JobKeeper money ran out and people were spending money on experiences rather than in retail, it felt a little bit like my business was dead in the water, even though we were so well established. So at the time I was thinking, oh my gosh, how did businesses that aren't as established as us, how are they going? But I was literally kind of like biting my teeth going, how do we get through this? And I had a fundamental problem with giving money to Meta and Google, which seemed to be the only way we could pay for advertising.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And I really didn't want to do that out of principle. I mean, in part because of what we'd seen go down over the previous years, but so I thought if I can't advertise through those avenues, then I have to look at ways to promote the business. And I came up with the idea of these free community events, which have just been a win-win. It's been a way for us to network and support other
it's word of mouth. Yeah,
and we're just getting the most beautiful people that want to give back without any expectation. So I'm finding that really inspiring.
That's gorgeous. So you're not with your husband anymore, but all those years you were working together and being.
Well, we still do. We're unusual.
Oh, okay.
We still live together. We have a business together. We have a daughter together. In many ways, he's still my best friend. We've been together since I was 18 years of age. And Derek and I have never fought. It's just not a dynamic, there's not that dynamic in our relationship, or very, very rarely. COVID was probably an exception to that. We were on different sides of the fence, but it's.
Oh, were you?
We make it work, and we still are really loving and supportive of each other. But yes, we haven't been together for about 4 years now, romantically.
Well, I mean, I would imagine, as I've heard lots of couples, if you're not in agreement on that, that's a big one to break up, or you said you were in different the COVID thing. You weren't in agreement on.
It was a real shock to me that not only were we on different opinions. He believed he was following science and all of those sorts of things, but just the choices that I thought we'd made together around home birth and not vaccinating and things like that, he kind of turned around and said, well, I was just going along with you. And I thought they were decisions that we'd made wholeheartedly together. Yeah. So there was a point where I just kind of looked at him, I don't know who you are anymore. I don't think it was what broke us up. But I mean, we'd been together for 28 years or something by that point, which is
it couldn't have helped though. It would put a divide, definitely. I mean, I've spoken to a few people. Hi, Victoria. A few people who've had that situation, and they either now they're separate bedrooms, or, it's just that's a big one.
I mean, it's what was so distressing about those policies was that they tore at the fabric of families, of lifelong friendships, and many of those relationships haven't repaired. I mean, Derek's and mine has found a new equilibrium, which is working really well for both of us. But it took us about 2.5 years, I think, to be able to sit in the room and have a conversation about mandates and government policy and things without ending up in an argument and one of us having to walk away. And I said, we don't fight. So it was incredibly, it was obvious to me how divisive this was almost immediately.
That's what they wanted to do, exactly. Sorry for being so white. Yeah. They wanted to, so I'm going to close the window one sec. That way it won't become so white. They wanted to divide families. They wanted to, that's part of the whole thing, I believe, because even like within siblings that happens, like my family, we were really strong. That was one thing, we never fought. And every time I bring any subject up, which goes in it with some of them, not all, there's some on my page, but it's awful. It's awful. Yeah.
I've lost lifelong friends, or friends of 8 years. My best friend for 8 years at the time still has not ever spoken to me since. And I mean, because she's never spoken to me, I'm not 100% sure that that's the reason why. But I was so vocal that
So what was that like? They couldn't handle that. I mean, if just on the thing. If they were to have a look now, where was it? Is it the CDC that's admitted that it was a trial to see if people would comply? What would they say to that? I wonder. But tell me about that, because I don't remember if I actually saw you down at the protesty type things, but you have been a real big voice.
Well, I was. I came out. I came out very strongly when the mandates were introduced. I mean, I have to say, up until that point, I was highly compliant, in part because I had 11 staff heading into COVID. By the time the mandates were introduced, so a year and a half later or something, the timing of it's all a bit distorted for me.
I know. Yeah.
But I had 7 staff, and I headed into COVID managing 25 practitioners. So I was managing, 30, 32, 33 other people, and and they were looking to me for guidance. So I think I probably got caught up a lot more in the fear than I would have perhaps otherwise, because I felt responsible and needed it. I mean, it wasn't just that I needed to be seen to be doing the right thing, but I needed to do the right thing for my business, and in regards to all of those people. So I felt a huge amount of responsibility to do the right thing. And so that for that reason, I think, and we did as a business, we were highly compliant. We were still able to work throughout that period, but we were all wearing masks, even though we weren't open to the public. And we'd often have conversations about how ridiculous it seemed, that I could pick one of my staff members up on the way to work, and we're sitting in this car together wearing masks, which we were, and that we'd spend all day together at work. The inconsistencies in the policies were really apparent at times, and yet we were still going along with
doing it. I don't worry. A lot of us were, I think, right at the beginning. Do you remember even like pressing buttons to cross the road? You'd kind of do it with your elbows.
I'm checking in at the supermarket.
Never did that. I always pretended to do that. Never did that. Yeah.
So I don't know, and I hadn't watched the news for 20 years when COVID hit, and then again as a business owner, that's how we were receiving updates in terms of policy. So I suddenly found myself drawn back in and engaged in the fear porn, and that's what it was. I mean, one of the things that woke me up was I'd never heard such consistent messaging in my entire life. We weren't getting shown what was happening in the rest of the world. It was, go get your jab, go get jab, go get jab. And I it was like brainwashing. And that's one of the things. I went, hang on, why aren't we seeing anything else from anywhere else? What this messaging is the most blanket, consistent messaging from the mainstream or government I've ever heard in my life. But yeah, I did. I felt a huge responsibility to all of all of my staff and practitioners to do the
you said
right
you didn't
thing.
stay open to the public. But so how
we were shut in Melbourne. Lockdowns meant as a business we were shut for I think over 250 days out of a 2-year period.
That's right.
It's so, and we weren't online up until then, so we literally had no money coming in except for JobKeeper money. Luckily, I run a really squeaky business, so we were able to get all of our staff on JobKeeper. But that in itself was incredibly stressful, and we didn't know whether we were going to be eligible, and we had to find a way to keep paying them for 6 weeks until otherwise, we had to get an overdraft in order to keep paying our staff, hoping that we would be eligible. My husband had his first grand mal seizure, like an epileptic fit, because of the stress of that, I think, in part. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. It's been huge. The last 5 years for me has just been.
Yeah. So hang on a sec. When he had a seizure, does he never had a seizure before, and just suddenly, and he might have taken something.
He was one of his responses to lockdowns was to start to drink quite heavily. So the drinking definitely contributed to the seizure, but about 6 to 8 weeks into the first lockdown, my husband had a grand mal seizure.
Wow. How did you deal with that?
I drove he was with my little brother at the time. They were going for a walk, and I got a phone call from my brother to say that Derek had quite a long fit in front of him, and that he called an ambulance, and that I was to go to the hospital, and my whole life flashed before my eyes.
Oh my God. Has he had anything since?
No, apparently it's incredibly common, if I can remember correctly, because I don't think about it very often. But 1 in 7 people will have a grand mal seizure, if I'm remembering this correctly, in their lifetime. And if you don't have another one within 6 months, your chances go back to 50-50 as to whether you'll have another one. And if you don't have another one within 12 months, your chances go back to the same as everyone else. So he had this one event, and touch wood, he's okay now. But
it was caused by stress, you reckon?
I'd say drinking and this because he pays all the wages and things. So the stress of trying to get to navigate JobKeeper. I mean, at the time I was thinking, my God, if English was your second language, or like, it was so complex and no guarantee that you'd actually get it,
because a lot of people probably just said sorry and let their staff go. You did a really decent thing.
Well, we're both sort of left of politics, and Derek's parents were quite involved in unions and things like that, so we've always had a strong responsibility to our staff.
Talking about the old left.
The old left, yeah. And I think that in a small business, anyone that when it works, they become like family. And we had 2 staff that were owed long service leave at that period. One of them had been with us for 10 years, and one of them had been with us for 8 years. So we then eventually through that period had to find the money to pay them out their long service leave with no money coming in.
Destroy small business. That's the thing. Yeah. If anyone is in Melbourne, this is in Caulfield. A lot of people are in Melbourne. Definitely. We'll put your shop. It's Qi Crystals, isn't it?
Yeah. I run a multi-award-winning Chrystal Shop. We've won Jewellery and Gift Shop of the Year 3 times, Business of the Year. These are leader business awards. And I still just love what I do. I'm still on the floor 4 out of 5 days a week. Our healing centre, we've got about 12 practitioners that work out of here, workshops, groups, these free community events that run every Saturday. But I think we're really careful not to push a particular agenda. It's really about holding space for people and honouring their journey and just gently guiding them in whichever direction they want to go. And it's to watch a whole world of possibilities open up for people around their spirituality or natural health options. I still find really rewarding almost 30 years on, because we get to see the most amazing transformation in people.
You must see so many stories or hear so many stories or see a huge amount there with all the people that come through. And you've got one of your workshops coming up was the reason I got in touch with you again now was because of the post you did about your dad and your mother-in-law. And it was very moving, of course. And as everyone knows, probably, I am making that play Marooned, which has been touring for the last probably 9 years on and off, which is around suicide. And I say we used to say it's a suicide prevention play, which it could be seen as that, but it's also a piece of theatre. But it just deals with the subject of people who have attempted to take their lives. And this is the thing about that, is you have to talk about it. And you were talking about it. And if we don't talk about it, then it gets hidden. And what I've also decided to do, and I can do a small, we can talk now, but since I've been talking about this, I've decided to do some small kind of discussions, interviews, whatever, with people who have actually even either taken their own lives, attempted, survivors, or who've been affected. Because if you hear from people who have actually dealt with it or survivors or had experience with it, puts a face to it, actually, instead of just numbers and people talking about it. And I think I'd like to just keep doing those, because I've had a lot of people tell me, I actually attempted. And a friend of mine, Gio, she came to see the play 2 weeks after she'd attempted. And I was like quite terrified. I thought, oh my God, I hope it doesn't trigger her to whatever. But she found it cathartic. And there's another woman, I won't mention her name, but she is going to talk to me. And she said, I attempted, and it was shoved under the carpet. I've never talked about it. It's just like as if it didn't happen. And that's, it's a really interesting thing with women, is we attempt more than men, but men are more successful statistic-wise. And I suppose, often it's a cry for help. So maybe they feel that they've done that. They can't, it's almost selfish, not selfish, but, narcissistic to talk about it anymore, because they feel guilty for causing stress or something. So tell me about your, if anyone hadn't seen that, about your dad and everything.
It's something I've been wanting to do for a really long time, talk publicly about my experience, because it's a Freudian nightmare where I lost my mother-in-law to suicide when I was 24 years of age. And then I lost my father 10 years ago to suicide. So my husband's lost his mother and I've lost my father in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think in the video I was saying, in the worst statistic of all, our daughter has lost half of her grandparents to suicide. And that's a gap that has always been in our life. For my daughter's almost 17, but, she never got the opportunity to meet her grandmother. And Marg was, my husband and I had already been together for 7 years when she died. And I loved her. Like my husband's got no siblings. He's the last of his line. So she in a lot of ways married into that family. I was marrying into a relationship with his mother. And she was really important to me, and it was absolutely, it rocked our world. Like the shock of it was just so immense. We knew she was going through a breakup. She'd been in chronic pain after a motorbike accident for 3 years. We knew that suicide was something that had come up attempts had come up at a few times throughout her life, but not for a long time. And so even though we knew at times she was feeling suicidal, and we'd talk with her about that, just still the finality of it and the abruptness of it and the fact that we weren't expecting it. Because when you love someone so much, you can't imagine how they could do this to you, or why you weren't enough, or, all of those things. So, and I think in some ways it is more shocking when a mother does it, or a woman does it. It's especially a mum, like that bond you think should be unbreakable.
Do you think she was putting herself out of misery, though, feeling like, I can't do this sort of thing? I can't.
I think chronic pain from the motorbike accident definitely contributed largely to it. Pain wears you down, doesn't it? And it makes it hard to sleep. And when you're not sleeping for years on end and in chronic pain, your judgment is diminished. And I think there's a large part of it that she did just want it to stop. But romantic relationship was always her weak point. And the first time she tried to commit suicide was when she was a teenager. She, for want of a better term, she got groomed by a much older man at the age of 15 or 16, and again, had a child before she was 18 to him, or maybe. It's not my history, so I'm not 100% sure of it, but thereabouts. That marriage broke up, and that was the first time that she tried to kill herself. And the end of a relationship, another 2 or 3 times throughout her life, she had attempted or had become suicidal enough to admit herself into hospital. And so she was going through another breakup, basically. But I still did torture myself with it for months and months and months. It would be one of my last thoughts at night. And
torture yourself, you mean, because you
with how she could do this, or my mind would go to her in those final moments, and I'd jump into her skin, I guess, wondering how she could feel that alone and that isolated when she was surrounded by people who loved her so much. And it was heartbreaking, and
also her son just having one. Gosh. Well, both.
So that I'd say my husband probably spiraled into his worst episode of alcoholism throughout. He's always had an issue with alcohol, but that, the next, I don't know how long it went on for, 18 months, 2 years of that period was really hard. And I just felt like I was holding everything together. We were running a business together. It was tough. It was really, really tough. And my dad was a great support to me through that period. He really helped me a lot through that. So to then be faced much, whatever, I don't know how long it was, 10, 12 years later down the track.
But the same thing.
To be faced with him making that same choice was really hard to wrap my head around. Again, like I think I spoke about in my video about the amount of disregard in their actions, and when you're on the receiving end, wondering why they didn't love you enough to want to stick around, or how they could do this to you.
As a child, absolutely. It's a whole other one when a child does it. But just saying, so your husband's dad even, and your dad saw the way it would have affected you, like you're saying. And then, so what about your husband's dad? Was he?
They weren't as close I mean, we certainly saw.
They weren't together, were they? That's right.
No, they weren't together. Hadn't been together for a very long time. I think they'd separated when my husband was 4, and he was 29 almost, and turned 30 soon after she took her own life. So he did fly. His father flew back from overseas though to be by our side and to come to the funeral and stuff. I mean, I know. I mean, everyone found it shocking. It was shocking, you know. And it rocked.
And then your dad, about 10 years later, what was around that?
Yeah, so maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 years later, my father fell into. He was diagnosed with biological depression, stress and anxiety, wrecked his nervous system, I guess, and set up a stress response in his body, and he sort of went into collapse and was chronically depressed for 7 years, and then I think tried to commit suicide 4 times over that 7 years, which again was just incredibly hard. I mean, when he first became depressed was really not very long after my daughter was born. And should have been a period where my parents were offering me support, but my mum was so busy looking after him, and she was still working. He was trying to keep working, but he was so debilitated by this depression that he couldn't work a lot. And I ended up babysitting him a lot because I was the one who was at home with a newborn, really. So he'd be on my couch, you know, smacked out in Valium or whatever it was that he was on, asking me to make him cups of tea and food and stuff.
You said it was biological depression. So what exactly does that mean? We actually talked last week.
I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but my understanding of it was that I won't go into what sort of, I guess, triggered his depression for him. But basically he had a lot of anxiety and angst around a particular situation, and he started trying, he couldn't sleep early in the morning, so he started trying to walk it off. And there was something about the walking, this intense anxiety set up a stress response within his body. So it was the stress and anxiety and depression, if you like, was metabolized, is my understanding of what his diagnosis was. But my father was a psychologist, had been for 30 years or something. So part of the issue was that he just felt like he knew it all. You know, anything that you'd suggest, I've done that, I've tried that, I know that, it's not going to work for me. He'd always say, you know, it might work for other people, but it's not going to work for me.
Right.
And I'd sort of
That's
say,
interesting.
that's right, you're so special, you know.
My character in Rune is a psychiatrist, and you know, psychiatrists, more psychiatrists, I think, are high on the suicide rate, because I guess you can only imagine they're always taking other people's problems on. But that's a different sort of take on it. The fact that I've tried everything. So was he? It sounds like he wasn't really willing to almost address stuff.
No, and his first attempt was really soon after he fell into this depression. So it was like that was his out really quickly. That was his answer to this, or his way of dealing with this.
So how many times did he attempt?
I think 4 times over 7 years.
So they both...
I found him on his second last attempt.
Oh, everyone keeps calling me. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's my son.
It is really sad that someone can get, I'm just reading the comment on the screen, it is really sad that someone can get to that point of no return. I mean, I really believe that something splits in the mind, and that they become so isolated and fixated on relief, or, you know, whatever it is that's going through them, that they become unreachable. You know?
Yeah, like they're a waste of space or something. You could imagine. I mean, I didn't mean to keep going back into this stuff, because
I really don't mind talking about it. My husband says, and I said this in the video that I made recently on the subject, that if we don't talk about it, it remains the Grim Reaper that slowly picks people off one by one. I've dealt with a lot in my life. So
and that's exactly, and that is why I'm making this film as well, because it's all about talking. And I agree. Like, you got to check in with people, and people are scared to. Like this, I don't know if you've had this. I mean, probably not, because you're the daughter. I know the person whose son took his life, which Maroon came from. She said people don't talk to her because, then they'd have to have a conversation about it, and that and it's too awkward for them, or something, or there's a whole stigma around it. But I absolutely agree. It has to be talked about. And so both of you and your ex, you're the victims in a way.
Yeah, it's the fallout is certainly massive for the people left behind. I mean, they say no one should have to bury their child. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like being a parent having lost a child. I think worse than I mean, not that you have to compare, but I think much harder to deal with, because our natural inclination as parents is to, at our very core is that it's our job to protect and keep alive and all of those things. So, my heart goes out to anyone who's lost a child at all, but let alone in that way. Because
absolutely, and I have a friend whose son did. Yes, like 6 months ago, my oldest daughter lost 5 friends many years ago, young people between teens and 20s. This is like, I'm raising money now to make this film. I'm always trying to think of places I'd love to try this one I think it's called Origin or something like that. It's in Melbourne, and it's for young youth suicide. It's all about, supposed to be a charity that prevents it. But do you know who's the CEO now, or the president? It's old Mr. I've forgotten his name. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do I say
to him? A lot
to
of
him?
People are still suffering from depression because of those government policies. I mean, it's,
totally.
or still feeling isolated. I do talk to, in the shop, I do talk to a huge number of people about a huge range of subjects. And this is still profoundly affecting people and in their awareness. I think as a society, we'll be paying and young people. I speak to so many mums in particular, but parents coming in talking about how this is affecting their kids, and it really is that thing of different ships, same storm. How this impacted each person.
You can't say it specifically is, but I know my daughter especially has been, to a degree, because everything's online, and all the competition and all the looks thing, and there's various things. Just also the thing, if they sort of have where do they go now? How do they start things? There's no motivation, it feels like, and all, they actually stole years, for young people in their early 20s, or even whatever age, 15 to 25, they stole 2 or 3 years of their lives. Those are vital years.
And also women who were close to the end of their reproductive years and were desperately wanting to meet someone and start a family. I mean, you don't get those years back. I mean, I made one other sort of 5-year retrospective video on COVID as well. I think it was really important to stop and pause and look back at what was the world's biggest changing event since the Second World War. And I'm watching in horror as this amnesia slips in. And it is, I know it's human nature to want to put trauma behind us and move on, but there's still some lessons that need to be learned from everything that happened. And I'm there's part of me that maybe starting to finally relax, but there's still some holding against or bracing myself for this stuff to raise its ugly head again, because
they're trying to do it. There's some ridiculous new virus, aren't they? I doubt whether anyone's going to pay attention, because they've almost got the same photos of these people, white people carrying. I mean, it could be AI, but are people really
it's quite insane looking back at it. I try to point out to people that I won't keep going back to COVID, because I know we're more here to talk about the other, but maybe I'll go back to that. Then I talked to a huge number of people in the shop, and some of the most profound connections I've made with people have been over suicide. Just hold, we really do hold space for people, and they often come into the shop for a very specific reason, sometimes because they're grieving for any reason whatsoever, but because of our gentle approach, and because we're not wanting anything out of it or pushing a particular agenda, people often will open up to me. And I've spoken to so many people over the years, in the days, weeks and months after having lost someone to suicide. And it's, I think, having had that personal experience and being able to share with them, although I try to keep the focus on my customer because that's my job. And when I lost my little sister to cervical cancer. It'll be 3 years ago in March, and that for me is just so much more raw than losing my father 10 years ago. And it's been so much. I mean, she was my sister. It's my little baby sister, and it's been, I'm still grieving, and
you'll never forget that for her.
I can feel loss around my father or my mother-in-law after all this time, more probably about the resource that isn't available to my daughter that should be there. But I don't spend a lot of time sort of grieving them anymore. But this losing my sister and it being less than 3 years ago still feels really raw to me.
Did that happen quite fast with her?
She was diagnosed with cervical cancer in March of 2020, so her illness mirrored COVID for us. And everything that was happened just complicated that. We couldn't be in hospital with her, or she couldn't get. She was on ivermectin. Ivermectin got withdrawn from cancer patients. I mean, it really complicated her illness for us. But just losing, she left behind her son. She was an amazing person. It's so.
And you weren't allowed into the hospital, did you say? Was it that time when?
There were periods of time where we weren't, as unvaccinated people, we weren't supposed to be in hospital. I mean, I had, because I was so vocal, because I was so vocal, I had all sorts of people reaching out to me, offering me all sorts of things. I had someone from Anonymous reach out to me and offer me fake ID and many people. And I'm like, I'm not a criminal. I'm not willing to do something that's illegal just because I've been put in this position. So I sort of had a righteousness about it, but there was actually and many people were probably aware of it, there was actually a hack within the government, the green tick, the MyGov thing. There was actually a really simple hack within that, where if you needed to, you could. And I think going into hospital to be with my sister, I used it twice, and it was the only time that I did. But I did have a principle about the fact that I wasn't going to be reduced to being a criminal just because of government policy. I mean,
were you a criminal though? Yeah. Look, my dad. I don't have
to value judgment on anyone else, but it was my line, I guess, for myself. People often tell me I'm the least judgmental person that they've ever met, and I really, I'm so much each to their own, as long as it's not hurting anyone else.
But my mum died in 2022, and so 2022. So that time we were able to go in, but there was all that ridiculous barrage to get into the hospital. And one day I think it was quite close to, well, no, she at some point anyway, I just remember going, stuff it, I'm not doing it, and actually saying that to the security people, and they just let me go. I said, my mum's up there dying, and I just walked straight through and said, get lost, you know. And then when she went to the palliative care, they wanted us to do it there. No, they wanted us to show, go and do a stupid up with the nose test.
Yeah.
And of course, I just brought, here's one I made earlier, you know. Showed them when
I've got my partner is his mother's nursing home. She's in her 90s, is still requiring you to make appointments and undergo a rat test every time you visit. I mean, still to this
stick
day.
The rat test, is that up the nose as well? I can't remember.
Yeah, you're supposed to stick it up the nose.
Just spit on it or something. Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah. But anyway, that's awfully sad about your sister. And so she's got a son or kids.
Yeah, Charlie's 7. My mum's looking after him almost full time. I mean, her husband and Charlie's father is definitely still 100% in the picture, but you know, he's got to work, and luckily my mum's retired, but she's in her mid-70s, and it's exhausting looking after her.
Were you able to see her towards the end, you know?
We nursed her at home. I slept there for the last 10 days of her life and nursed her 24/7. So we you know, as a family, we were able to help her to die at home. But honestly, she just died in the most awful way. And I guess if we're talking about suicide, that's something to euthanasia is something to talk about, isn't it? As part of it. I mean, I don't. I can really understand, especially having held her through that. That decision is the right one in some cases, and
put her out of her misery or something. Yeah, but you know
and I think towards the end, I think she wished she'd put something like that in place.
Yeah.
But she really
paperwork.
couldn't.
It's all paperwork. No,
it takes with the fact she was dying until it was too late.
Yeah.
And by the time she was in so much pain that she wanted it to stop, that paperwork wasn't possible.
It's awful. That is just, so bad, because it's for you as well. There's nothing you can do to see your sister like that.
Well, I felt like I did everything I could, which is why I'm coming to terms with it as well as I am. But it's the powerlessness. I mean, you know, I guess it became obvious that we were powerless with my father too. I mean, he kept saying, I'm mentally terminally ill. If I had a terminal illness, you'd understand. Why won't you understand that I am mentally terminally ill? You know,
like someone else said here, alcohol is a massive driver of depression. So of course, if he's drinking a lot, he's actually feeding it in a way as well.
Yeah, my father hadn't touched alcohol in like 30 years or something. He definitely wasn't a drinker, but my husband has battled with alcohol and depression. I mean, I think I've always had I've had a tendency towards melancholy is how I would describe my own mental state at times.
But I'll go to the positive thing in a sec, because what you were talking about when I saw you the other day about how you're feeling, because I was just going to say, you've really have been around a lot of death, you know, and that's such a huge thing for your young age, because you're not, it's still a young person, you know, in middle, whatever, but that's a huge amount to have to deal with. How do you deal with that?
I don't know. Look, I think I was at a really pivotal age when the Ethiopian famine was happening, like in the early 80s. It affected me profoundly as a young child. I've always had a perspective of how lucky I am to have just been born here at this point in time. I guess historically too, you know, that if people's life expectancy was only 30 or 40, well, then historically most people would have dealt with a lot more death than I have in my time on the planet.
True.
I also remember seeing a woman talk about the Rwanda massacre, and she told this, or the reporter, because she didn't speak English, was telling the story about how she had watched her entire family and village be murdered, and then all the bodies were piled on top of her, and she lay there for 3 or 4 days until she felt like it was safe to come out. And they were doing an interview with her, and she was smiling and laughing and so on. And it was less than a year later that this interview, and I just looked at this woman, I thought, oh my God, I'm never. It again, like the famine affected me as a young child. This video affected me quite profoundly. I thought, my God, if she can smile after everything she's been through, I'm going to try and remember that. But losing my sister's been the biggest one for me, and it's taken me until late last year, so say more than 2.5 years since she died, to even I was sitting around a lake in the country, so surrounded by nature, and late last year, and just this little flicker of joy touched my heart again for the first time since she died. And also since COVID. I mean, COVID was heavy for me, and it definitely compounded everything I've been through in the last 5 years. Sometimes I find it hard to separate out how much COVID affected me and how much my sister's illness and death has affected me. Happening to me at the same time, but it was the first time that I'd felt any sense of joy or lightheartedness in a really long time, and I'm going to take this with both hands and grab it and not let go. And
I wonder what it was. I wonder if something about being in somewhere really peaceful. Maybe, who knows? I don't know if you believe in spirits coming to you. Maybe she kind of said it's okay or something. You're allowed to be.
And maybe just long enough. I mean, they say time's the only thing that can heal with grief. And I've watched documentaries and heard other people talk about it, but 3 years is definitely a turning point with grief. It really is. And not that it ever goes away, but 3 years is the first time where it feels like you've start to have a little bit more space from it. And but the 10th anniversary of my father's suicide, which was Saturday 2 weeks ago, was absolutely huge for me. And I feel like I've been through one of the biggest cathartic experiences of my life, and coming out the other side of it, I feel like a different person, perhaps better than I've ever felt in my life. I mean, it's one of the really beautiful things about getting older, isn't it, is that you start to find more of your own ground. And
that's what I was going to say, exactly. And you like, I only met you that brief time, but that you seems to be like you weren't like a flower the other day. You're very positive and up and feeling that this is your time almost, or Oh,
look, it's just such a relief to feel like this after the last 5 years, and maybe even 7 years. I mean, look, this probably started before COVID for me. I'd spent the last sort of 7 or 8 years leading up to COVID expanding my business quite aggressively, and I was really passionate and really excited about what we were doing. And a lot of people forget that we were in a recession. We were headed into a heavy recession in the lead up to COVID. The economy was really depressed, and I probably made some mistakes as well. But had I not pulled my 2 shops back into one just before COVID hit, like in the January before the March, I wouldn't have made our next tax bill, and I was faced with my business going under. So we headed into COVID in probably the worst financial situation we've ever been in, and it's just been a hell of a time for me, And so to feel like I've really come out the other side of that. It's so fresh. It's only been the last couple of weeks that. So 10th anniversary of my father's death, and I think I think my father definitely, I think, had some sort of undiagnosed mental illness when I was growing up. And like many of us, I was left with the trauma legacy that he from childhood that was his to me, really. And his stuff was like this in my face, and I didn't realize, and it all came to head on the 10th anniversary of his suicide. Now, rationally, I didn't realize that it was the 10th anniversary of his suicide, but I woke up the next morning and one of the first things that hit me was, oh my God, yesterday was the 10th anniversary of Dad's death. And his stuff, like his legacy, trauma, emotional legacy to me was just like this yesterday. And I feel like I went into some altered state. I was the most manic I've ever been in my life. And it's a really unfamiliar feeling to me. Maybe when the mandates were introduced, I also became quite manic, but it's not a state I go into regularly. But I just was having one epiphany after another. And for 10 days, I was hardly sleeping, hardly eating. I had so much energy. I was downloading and writing heaps and just having so many realizations.
This is not 2 weeks ago. This is back.
This is 2 weeks ago. This was on the 10th anniversary. Which was on the 17th of January. So it's all very fresh for me, but I feel like so much has shifted. I mean, I've been a lifelong nail biter, and I looked down a few days ago and went, oh my God, I haven't been biting my nails for a few days. So I think the big thing for me, one of the big realizations, and I've had many in that in the last couple of weeks, but one of the big things for me was having psychologists as parents. As a child, we were always made to work through our stuff. You know, if we were angry, we had to hit a pillow, or relationships require work. You have to work through your stuff. And I just, in one of those days, I'm going to say, I'm done working with this. I've been working with his shit my whole life, and I just want to clear it now. So, I'm sure it'll come up again at some point. We seem to spend our whole lives.
Well, you must have done some sort of clearing it with the manicky thing, Yeah. Because I think we get to a point where we've got, okay, actually it's all left me now, whatever,
I do feel the best I've ever felt in my life. I think I'm, again, touch wood it will last, but I've got so much energy. I've got no pain in my body. I feel inspired. I just feel the most joyous and lighthearted. Like I said, I've always had a tendency towards melancholy, and I feel the most joyous and lighthearted I've ever felt, and playful. Playful's always been something that has been really hard for me to access. I've always been a really serious person. I'll talk deeply.
Sounds like you had very serious parents as well, which might have done that, But what you're saying there is absolutely how we should be anyway, and that we've got to that point. That's fantastic. It's just time now to breathe into it and be in it, isn't it? That's what it feels like.
Well, I think it is. It's almost what's required of us, of women at this age, is that we come into ourselves, and I keep saying, it feels like I've come home to myself finally, and hallelujah.
What you're saying though is exactly what I've been talking like this last year, really, to a lot of women. That's it. It's our time, and to be able to be 100% your own person in your own authenticity, all those words, that's how it should be. Yeah. Just put not the GoFund, the artist thing up for anyone who wants to throw a couple of pennies in.
Let's get this bill made, people. Very important.
Or know somebody that would like to actually be a sponsor, that who could benefit from having marketing, like a business. But anyway, a bigger business. But that's great. Seriously.
Yeah, I think I was saying to you earlier, we've got one job in this life, and that is to show up as authentically ourselves as we possibly can, because no one else can do that job for us.
Yeah.
And I think you get to an age where you just have to fly caution to the wind. It is about having the courage to speak up, to show up as authentically ourselves as we possibly can.
And it comes when it comes as well, you know. Most of the time it takes a long time to get there, but it's never too late, you know. Who is that? Someone was saying, is it too late to start something? Like, nah, never. Or too late to meet someone? Nah, never, you know. Because you're, like you just said, everybody's their own person, and we don't know when.
We've all got something at the core of us that the world deserves to see or hear, you know. Like it's sad that people don't ever feel safe enough or have the courage enough to, or have been conditioned into not giving that to the world, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
well,
thank you,
that their lives are taken too soon for them to have the opportunity to come home to themselves and be able to show up like that. I mean, it's tragic.
Or feel that, well, you know, I can't start anything now, but you can do anything you want. There's no rules, you know. Well, that's right. And I often have thought, oh, what am I doing with Earthworm Woman? You know, is it going anywhere? But I'm actually do enjoy continuing on with it, and I think I need to, because it's good for me too, because
100%
keeps me meeting lots of really interesting people for some.
We're going to wrap up soon, but can I talk quickly about the event that we have on the 21st? It's one of our free community events, and we do run free community events at Qi Crystals in Caulfield every Saturday. And they've got a bit of a life of their own now. So most Saturdays we have multiple free events on. We usually hold them in our beautiful crystal garden, so you don't have to book. You can just turn up and join in. If it's not really for you, you can turn up and walk away. We try to plan them out about 6 to 8 weeks in advance, so you can jump on the Healing Centre tab on our website and see what's coming up. We're really reliant on whoever's presenting to get their stuff through to us, but as soon as they get it up to us, we get it up on the website. So there's a lot more booked in than will be up on the website at the moment, so just keep an eye on that. We also put a post out on Facebook and Instagram every day, but usually on Thursdays you'll see my face pop up and tell you what's coming up on the Saturday. Saturday, the 21st of February, we have got an Ending Cycle of Life festival, which coincidentally one of my parents' good friends has organised. She's a death doula and involved in the Death Cafe movement. But Gillian's got very excited, and she's planned so much that I'm not sure I've got my head all around it at this stage. But basically we have a whole day dedicated to exploring all aspects of death and the death industry. So my understanding is that we're going to have undertakers and death doulas and huge people coming from interstate for it. And it's like a festival to help people to come more to terms with death, not just suicide. I don't even know if suicide will come up, but it is. But it's
we talk about birth, talk about death. Yeah.
So I think someone's doing a shrouding exhibition. So basically free talks and workshops running all day, and also I think there'll be 4 or 5 people offering mini treatments throughout the day as well. There'll be a raffle and all sorts of things. So Gillian's still finalising everything and getting all the details to us, but so she will have a schedule of the free talks and workshops up very soon, but the poster is up on the Healing Centre tab of our website. So that should be an interesting one.
And is it qicrystals.com.au or something?
Yeah, that's our website. Yeah. And then just QI Crystals on both Facebook and Instagram as well. And every now and again I put out some more serious stuff. If you want to watch the video that I did about suicide recently, that's not too far back on our Facebook or Instagram. And there's definitely, if you go back to 2021, there's definitely a lot of the stuff I had to say about what was happening at that time as well. It'll still come up if you do a Google search too.
Oh, definitely. If you're in Melbourne,
there's
wrong. Sorry, ignore that. There's no H, of course. Ignore me. It's because I can't really. I'm trying
You
not
don't
to.
do things at once.
CRYSTALS.com.au. Yeah, so ignore everything I've written with the H in it. It's not that.
Hopefully we should come up if you do a Google search.
Yeah, I'm sure. So thank you so much, Qi.
Oh,
Have
thank you,
the rest
Hannah.
of your day off.
Yeah, this is my Sunday morning, everyone, because I work.
Yeah, I'm going to continue on to do some marketing and speak to some people, but I'm really glad I came to your shop, and I'm going to come and sit in your garden part out the back.
Yeah, well, you can come and do one of our free events and
yeah,
slash for a fundraiser too. So just get it out there a bit more as well. So.
Come and do a free event, you say?
Yeah, you could come and do a free talk about your film and what you're doing and or your podcast.
Could do something like that. Yeah, anything. Well, if I can give back to you as well. Yeah. So
it is the free events really are a win-win. Like I said, it's a way for us to network and support other small businesses and people who are doing good work in the world. So it's
fantastic.
We've got a really beautiful supportive community. I did a talk on my take on crystal healing recently, and I was sharing from a very personal perspective about my childhood and how it's framed my approach to my work and things like that. And I think because I was sharing so personally, I was pretty nervous. I'm not a bad public speaker, but I was actually pretty nervous. But they're such a beautiful bunch of people that it was good to do.
Well, we haven't even touched on whoever's upstairs in your healing center, so everyone has to get onto the website and have a look, because it's a fantastic shop as well. I didn't even go upstairs, but out the back it's just really beautiful. So thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'm just going to end with my sponsor, partner, business, Maddalena, with her beautiful potions that she makes, creams and intimate duet. That's the word.
She's a gorgeous woman. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You know Maddalena. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thanks to, I haven't even mentioned Denise and I haven't mentioned Go to Life, which are the other two people, but our next time. Okay. See ya.
See ya.
I am not just a product made to satisfy the pocket, nor do I require the same fame others seek. I desire your heart, the passions that make you a woman, any woman, every woman. My scents are a representation of purpose, courage, confidence, each botanical ingredient a praise of thanksgiving and self-care. The way I feel upon your flesh, a comfort of nourishment, as I feed dehydrated and depleted layers of skin, bursting for a new life of regrowth and youthfulness. If I stir your soul with each application, let it be known that you, too, are an intimate duet woman.